This episode of Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Olsen Salt, Australia's oldest family-owned salt company.
When, you think about a dish that's made, the produce is grown with care, it's delivered with care, it's treated with care in the kitchen, it is up to the front of house to deliver it to the guests with care, It's that simple.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. There are people with an innate ability to deliver the magic in a restaurant, driven by a belief in what they do, inspired by those around them, and who find joy in creating memorable experiences for people. Career hospos, who are at the heartbeat of the culinary landscape, who can, over decades, not only create their identity in the industry, but help form the food and wine conversation for an entire region or state. Sharon Romeo is the co-owner of Fino Seppeltsfield and Fino Vino. Sharon, how are you going?
I'm great. I'm especially wonderful after that brilliant introduction.
Well, you've been in the industry for quite a few decades now, and a massive influence on South Australia's restaurant scene. What's it felt like for you? The turbulence of the last year and the vocation of a hospitality worker.
I wouldn't change a thing. Well, I wouldn't change my career. I absolutely love what I do. This last year and a bit has been extremely challenging, and I feel like I'm more resilient. I feel like I'm more resilient. I questioned how resilient I am, because if you don't give it your best shot, the doors will close. And there's a lot of competition out there, and I feel that the Fino brand is strong. People respect it. Our peers respect what we do, and we have integrity, and all those values that we have. I feel like we will survive, but far out, it's hard at times, when you've got to, especially during the height of COVID, when we had to shut down our restaurant. Actually, it was this time last year, so it was around the 21st of March. We closed 2 venues on the same day. Most heartbreaking feeling. You don't know. There are so many unknowns. When are we going to reopen? But to hold your head high and to smile in front to customers was pretty hard when there are so many unknowns.
Give us a sense of what the situation is at the moment in South Australia. You've got a venue in the city and in regional areas.
Liberating. We're pretty lucky here. The South Australian wine regions are flourishing. The domestic tourist, interstate tourism is at its peak, I think, still. We're still at the tail end of the Mad March as well. So the Adelaide Festival's just finished last weekend. I've got one more week of the Fringe. Look, there's people are walking around. My car park was full, which is a really good sign. Well, what it is, because, for 8 months it wasn't, people are around. There's this liberating feeling, I think, and especially in the wine regions, like Seppeltsfield's, we're standing pretty strong there, which is great.
You mentioned the resilience required. Do you think these circumstances that have happened, do you think, what do you think is the sort of hospitality industry that will emerge after the dust has settled on COVID?
I think a lot of venues will relook at their business model. I think we have to really listen to what the customer wants. I think, having a recession and then a pandemic, I think we have to offer value and fun.
As we said at the top of the show, you've been influential for just over 3 decades in South Australia. Can you take us back to sort of where it all started and what drew you to hospitality?
The kitchen table at my mum and dad's house. Pretty much. Southern Italian family. We are calabrese. It is all about, it was about cucina povera, which is peasant food. You know, we had, my parents weren't wealthy, but, you know, the beautiful dishes Mum cooked, you know, and even my father, you know, we slaughtered the pig every year, and we used, you know, nose to tail eating every day. Homemade tomato sauce, just the basic food, but God, the memories there are so incredible for me. And so that was, I would, you know, cook the family meal when I was 13 or 14 out of love.
Wow.
Well, because Dad was working, Mum was working, and, you know, it would be a basic pasta sauce. Huck wasn't fancy, but it came very naturally to me. And my mother's and father's generosity of anyone that walked in that home, it just, yeah, I think it's innate. It's part of my DNA. When I'm so fortunate to own 2 venues, and when that door is open, it's like walking into my home. And it really is. And I want that experience for a guest, because you can't get that everywhere. That human connection and the love of pleasing someone, you know, even for a few hours.
We can get to the incredible hospitality experience that you do deliver to people, and it's hard to put into words. You have to experience the full Sharon Romeo experience in person to know what it's like. But can you tell us the early days before you owned these venues, some of the inspirational sort of places you worked, and what were really key moments in your career?
Yeah. I actually worked... I worked a lot. I started working in hospitality to pay for my uni degree, because I had to pay for my HECS debt. So, but then I just kind of, fell in love with it and didn't want to leave. I wanted to be a chef at one point. And that not that it didn't work out. I kind of, there was a male chef that told me at the age of 16 that I was too old to be an apprentice.
Wow.
I know. But, you know, I then went back to uni and did a degree and worked in front of house to pay for that. And then, you know, I loved it. Worked in a lot of cafes, kind of Italian cafes in Adelaide, CBD. A few notable places. One was a little Italian cafe called Cibo, and I was really fortunate to work with Robbie Cardoni. And Roberto, he was kind of influential to me. He just had this beautiful, innate, hospitable manner about him, and really energetic. And I don't know, he just kind of inspired me that to have fun and with customers and be yourself, I guess, and always to strive for something better. So he was kind of pivotal for me in my career. Other than that, working in wine regions I really, really loved. But that was what drew me to Fino in Wollonga. But I met David Swain, my business partner, at a beautiful little cafe on the edge of a cliff at my favourite beach where I now live at Port Wollonga, called the Star of Greece. It was a pretty mental place. It was just manic, but it was just pretty magical. And David was in the kitchen with Michael Ryan from Provenance, which is really random. But the food they were dishing up, you know, and it was literally squid caught on that beach, you know, like an hour before and on the plate. Like, it was just so special and memorable. And I think it's the restaurants in regions that resonate with me, because it is about place and provenance. Yeah, the sense of place is just, it's just so special. You know where you are, and you celebrate that region for all that it has.
You briefly mentioned Fino Wollonga, which you had for a decade. Can you tell us how that started and what it was like in the early days?
Yeah, well, that was definitely my career highlight for me, to open that place. Few reasons. I didn't think I was good enough to open my own venue. I met David, who knew exactly what he wanted. We met at the Star of Greece in 2000. We were so like-minded. One day, just having a conversation. One day, Shaz, we should open our own place. I said, what a great idea. What we wanted to create was a place that we wanted to eat and drink at. That's all. Simple, our rules, no rules, what we wanted to share with others. So, when we first opened, we thought it'd be a great idea to not have a menu. Let people trust us. Yeah, in 2006, that didn't work in Adelaide or South Australia. It wasn't a great idea. So it didn't last very long. So then we created this little tiny, menu of about 8 dishes. But it was the most intimate restaurant. It really was. And it was all about community, Winemakers would walk in with bags of mandarins, duck eggs, whatever they grew that they had excess of. And it was and that's what I love about regions. It is all about community and relationships, You're seeing the winemakers, the vignerons, the producers, the growers, the farmers, It's just magical.
You mentioned the importance for a regional restaurant to have a sense of place. What was that for Fino Wollonga?
Well, it was about the produce mostly. I actually, I probably, I had a really tiny small wine list of about 50 wines, and I got a bit of grief from locals about not having enough local wines or their wines on my list. But for me, it was to excite the winemaker and the guest about giving them something different that they might not normally have. Which was great because I won 3 Best Small Wine Lists in Australia and then 3 Hall of Fame. So, it was I took a risk, I guess. But to have lighter style, more interesting varieties of wine or wines with texture and skin contact, we're talking back in 2006. They're just the style of wines that we chose, and David and I absolutely love sherry. That was also part of the mix. They all make sense with the food that he created. It worked so beautifully. There was a synergy about what we did. It's hard to replicate.
You briefly mentioned that your wine lists have won many awards, and you've won many awards over your career. Tell us about your interest in wine and, wines of South Australia that you really love.
I don't know how. I think I just got kind of given a wine list back in the early 2000s, and kind of had to teach myself about it. Of course, now I absolutely love it. And the wines that I love to celebrate on any wine list I curate are wines that have personality, wines that just are fresh and alive, wines that have texture, savouriness, handcrafted, that have their own story. Because, we are storytellers on the floor of a restaurant, and when you have a dish that has a sense of place, I think that wine should too. And we make some stunning wines in Australia and South Australia, of course. So it's always a pleasure to celebrate what we do. And always, I think with wine lists, especially in the CBD, we have to have a point of difference as a venue, to offer a different drink or beverage experience. It's really important, or else, what makes you stand out from the rest. There's so much competition and so much choice out there.
This episode of Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Olsen Salt, makers of Australian sea salt since 1948.
We take the seawater from Great Australian Bight and then we store it in something called a primary pond. Then it's fed through a succession of ponds from anywhere between 8 months and 2 years until it gets so heavy in brine and the water is evaporated off, the salt starts to fall out of the water, and it's as simple as that. That's all that we do, and then we wash it in seawater and package it. Hi, I'm Alex Olsen from Olsen Sea Salt. Salts all over the world can taste differently, and that's because salt has character, in the same way that a wine has character from where it's grown. So salt from the Eyre Peninsula has a very fresh, clean, crisp flavour that some of the best chefs in Australia appreciate. Eyre Peninsula is a really remote location, and because it's remote, it's considered a very pristine area. I mean, the next landfall is the Antarctic, and that pristine water makes it a perfect place to make sea salt.
For more information, go to olsons.com.au. In 2014, you opened Fino Seppeltsfield. Tell us how that came about and a little bit about the establishment.
David and I were we're at Fino Wollonga. A regular customer was a man called Warren Randall. Warren, do you know much about Warren, Huck?
No, tell me.
No? Okay. Warren, he's made his... Well, was a bulk wine grower. Well, he made a lot of money making bulk wine. He was a winemaker at Seppelt back in the 80s. Most amazing character, charismatic, charming man. Kind of held court when he came to Fino. Did lots of business whilst dining there. He bought Janet Holmes à Court's share of Seppeltsfield Wine Estate. And I can't remember back when now. It might be a decade ago now. And he was wanting to redevelop the estate. And Seppeltsfield, which was established in 1851, had never had a restaurant. And he wanted to create a destination restaurant. So he invited David and I to open Fino at Seppeltsfield. Now, for 2 or so years, we said no. Well, we said no because our life was down south. You know, we just couldn't facilitate or even contemplate how we were going to logistically make it happen. And did we want another venue? What were we doing? Anyway, so we thought, actually, what an amazing opportunity. Barossa is a world-class wine region. Globally, everyone knows the Barossa. More so than McLaren Vale, and more so than a little town called Wollonga. So we wanted to take on this opportunity. We went from a 60-seat restaurant in Wollonga to a 140-seater restaurant in Seppeltsfield. And my God, I didn't know what I was up for. I'm serious. I had no idea. So David stayed in Wollonga cooking. I went to set it up and kind of lived out of a suitcase for about 4 years. Did 4 days on and then came back to my life in Port Wollonga for 3 nights. So it was pretty disruptive, to be honest. And it was a beast. It was just so busy. It was amazing, but learned a lot from that experience. And one of the most important things I've learned is that be true to who you are and don't dilute your brand just because someone doesn't understand what you offer. We served so many tourists and so many internationals, and they didn't want to know about my story or my brand. Yeah, and they didn't necessarily understand our shared concept. So yeah, it was just a really steep learning curve, but to stand by what you believe in and honour that and don't deviate, it was the biggest lesson for me. And we have a brilliant, beautiful destination restaurant in Barossa, led by our head chef, Sam, who's been with us for over a decade, and my restaurant manager who's been with us, Amy, who's been with us for over 5 years. So a brilliant, brilliant, strong team that we've created and that we have, nurtured into being beautiful leaders. Because it's busy. It's still busy, Huck.
Well, I'm not surprised because the experience you deliver is exceptional.
Oh, yeah.
You also opened. You sort of did the opposite. A lot of operators have moved to the country out of the city to open a restaurant, and you went the other way and opened one in the CBD.
Well, yeah, because I think we opened Fino Wollonga in 2006. We opened Fino Seppeltsfield in 2014. I think we just we've always wanted to have a presence in the city. And bring that kind of regional ethos of community and provenance into a contemporary venue in the city. So, yeah, we just had a bit of bad luck on the time we opened.
COVID aside, is there operational differences between operating and having an offering in the city compared to the country?
Yes, but only because, well, I can only tell you my experience because we opened late December 2019, and then we went into COVID. So I'm looking across the road to an empty office building. The city's a bit tricky. There's more life, but yeah, there is a big difference. Into just in terms of sorry, I'm just trying to think of why it's different. I don't think the CBD is as busy as wine regions.
And that's because people are getting out and about and out of the city more and not. Yeah.
I assume so. And I think we're still relatively new. No matter how, I know that our brand is very strong and, it's been around for a long time, but still, we are still a new venue. We're only a year old, essentially.
You mentioned how it's your job on the floor to be a storyteller and talk about your, whether it's the wine or the food or the brand. What makes a great restaurant experience?
Warmth, generosity, authenticity. Just delivering a really beautiful, delivering on our story. I'm of course I'm going to be. No one's going to tell my story better than I and David. And when you think about a dish that's made, the produce is grown with care, it's delivered with care, it's treated with care in the kitchen. It is up to the front of house to deliver it to the guests with care. It's that simple. And I think delivering an exceptional guest experience is, the front of house need to have this kind of intuitive service and anticipate the guests' needs. There's a lot of body language that a lot of, people, some front of house kind of need to work on. Yeah. Well, you do, because you can see, I can tell if someone's feeling intimidated by our offering, and you go over there and you just, talk them through what, you can see, we can't be everything to everybody, but if we as a front of house can make someone feel comfortable in an environment they might not normally be in, they will return and they'll have a wonderful time. Because that's what we want. We've only got them for a couple of hours. You've
been an important part of South Australia's restaurant industry for a while now. How have you seen it changed over the last couple of decades?
I think we certainly have. I think South Australia is becoming more known for our colour, for our food and wine experiences, definitely. I think we're up there. We always used to be forgotten. Well, we have, think about everyone kind of talks about Sydney and Melbourne, but I think South Australia is definitely coming into its own. I think we have, we're more confident. I think we're more confident. We're more experimental. Having having a lot of small bars open in Adelaide's been fantastic, and little quirky places. The beauty about going to Melbourne, you can walk down a laneway and come across this gem, and Adelaide's far more confident in cooking. I think we are delivering great experiences, actually, without a doubt. Compared to when I first started in the cafe world in the 90s, there were lots of lots of Italian cafes, Huck, lots, and they weren't doing anything really, mind blowing. But I think I can confidently say when I, suggest customers to dine out in other venues, I've got lots of choices to give them, and they deliver on different experiences.
South Australia is known for some amazing wines and incredible produce as well. What do you think? What is it that makes South Australian producers and their produce so special?
Well, our environment, maybe. Well, definitely the environment. I think we have the most amazing coastline from the whole Spencer Gulf, Port Lincoln, right through down south. The amount of seafood we have, and we're getting more of it too since less is being exported. I'm about to meet our Pippi producer tomorrow with some bluefin tuna hearts for us to try.
Wow.
The quality of poultry and beef, eggs, everything, Huck. It's just, we are so lucky here. We deal with we have been dealing with growers and producers now for 15 years.
I have a list in front of me here of some of the accolades that you've received, and it'd probably take an episode of Deep in the Weeds to go through them all. It's pretty extraordinary. But what's been some of the highlights for you, and what's been some of the greatest honours that you've received?
Oh, well, winning my first little small wine list Wine List Award was one of my biggest, only because one of the Gourmet Traveller wine judges, Peter Forrestal, came into Fino Willunga, and I just gave him my little A4 piece of paper as a wine list, and he's like, "Sharon," I said, "Yes, Peter, you should submit this to a Wine List Award." I said, "What wine list?" I didn't even know they were there. "What Wine List Award? I'm just this little restaurant in Willunga, South Australia that probably no one knows about." So, to be recognised for writing a really small wine list was probably one of my highest, but also to be recognised for my service. Every award, there's they all mean a lot to me, Huck. Every single award, no matter whether it was from the Advertiser in South Australia or to Best Restaurant Manager in Australia with Women in Business Awards, they all have the same. I have the same emotion. I'm so proud of my achievements to be recognised as someone who absolutely loves what they do. So there's no favourite little trophy. Yeah.
You mentioned the challenges with the newer venue in the city because of COVID, and the regions are flourishing at the moment as people step out. Has there been operational changes for you over the last year as a result of what's happened?
Because we didn't have the trading history at Fino Vino, we couldn't qualify for JobKeeper. So I have come back on full-time in the city. Well, I've loved it. To be back on the floor. I mean, my body hates me. My body hates me because after 30 years, with cortisone injections in my elbows, shoulder surgery, knee surgery, all from work, I'm probably working a little bit too much, but it's been wonderful to reconnect with the customer, because we were trying to kind of phase out, and we had a full team here, but from COVID we had to let everyone go. So I'm back working more hands-on.
With that hands-on experience like that, is it changing the way that you perceive your role as an owner and restaurant manager across the venues?
I kind of didn't expect me to be in this role that I'm in. It's but it's not. It's only for the short term. So the plan, when we can hold our own, we'll employ a restaurant manager to lead the team in the future, which is the plan. So that's me working hard right now, Huck, to make it all happen.
With all of your experience over the years and the challenges that you've had, what sort of advice would you give to young people looking for a career in hospitality?
What I want to say, you shouldn't record. Don't do it for the money. Do what you love, truly, because do it if you love it. It is the most rewarding industry. You get to work with booze, with food, with people. You get to tell stories. You get to have fun. You get to laugh. You get to listen to great music. But do it because you love it. That's all the advice I have, because it's hard work. It's hard on your body. It's long hours.
Well, it's a beautiful sentiment, and as I alluded to earlier, you really do need to experience your hospitality in person, because it's really something that can't be put into words. It's something that you have to experience and feel for yourself. So I recommend anyone travelling to South Australia to get out and check out Fino. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds, Sharon, to share your story today.
I've loved being on. Thanks, Huck. It was such a pleasure to be with you.
Well, hopefully catch up with you soon down there. And
please come and visit me.
We'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, mate. Lovely to chat.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.